for a quiet change, I am talking about the cone first. I don't know how many of you believe in less is more. Yeah, I know, whole day we debated this. So how many are the believers of less and more? Let us see first. Less and more, sometimes it looks very logical. It's a very logical in this type of situation where you feel that less is always good and less is always more. But how many are the true believer of less is more? Only 3 people in this hall, not more than that. 4, 5, 6. You are talking to me, but don't tell this thing to your administrator. They will slash your salary and tell you less is more. Keep quiet. So believe me, less is more is not always true. Okay? Another example, Babu has done, he's not here, he's a good friend of mine. It's like little not good to say anything about him in his absence. But he is also not a believer in less and more. He's a good orator, that is why he's talking on the less and more. He's not a believer. Why I can say so? Because he has done his MRCP from UK. He went to UK. Why didn't he went to Pakistan or Afghanistan believing in less is more? Why at all he has done MRCP? Why not he did MD like me and started working here? It means he doesn't believe in less and more. He can debate on less and more, but he doesn't believe. Another example, less and more is very good. When we talk about the flutes, less and more, about the nutrition, about the antibiotics, about so many other things like test. But less is more is not always true. It is good for those intervention, those who are mediocre intervention, where life-threatening situation is not there. Then you can see less is more. So what I feel, less is more is a good phrase, that's it. It is a misnomer. Never in the life, less can be more. So what is ECMO? Let's go back to the thing. It's a cardiac support, could be a respiratory support, could be a VA ECMO, VV ECMO, can we use hybrid? Do we have any less in this? Can you imagine anything less in this? VV ECMO, put an arterial cannula, that's it. Don't put any venous cannula. Cannot happen. So ECMO is always a bridge to either recovery, bridge to transplant, or bridge to decision. Can you break this bridge in between and feel that less is more? This bridge is looking too long. Let us have a small bridge. Cannot have. So there are certain situations where you cannot have less is more. Like indication of VV ECMO, severe ARDS with refractory hypoxemia, don't have got any other option to put the ECMO. VA ECMO, refractory cardiogenic shock, ECPR, myocarditis, and blah blah. Like these things, you don't have got any alternative. If you do it, or you let your patient die. So the less or more is little misnomer in this situation. Can you achieve these goals without ECMO? On ventilation or any other things? I don't think so. We can achieve these goals by any other means. So less is more is not that good phrase for this condition. Coming to the famous Yola trial, I am sure my friend Babu has made up his whole case on this trial only, because everybody is quoting this trial. People who are believer in ECMO, they take out something and show the data. Those who are non-believer, they twist the data to show that it is not working. So it's the same data, people are twisting either way. And believe me, many times people ask me that what is the evidence? I always tell them, look, life and death cannot depend on a 0.05 p-value. It is something else. It could be for a statistician but not for a clinician. So looking again, going back to the data, look at this data. Huge data. They took 1,015 patients assessed for eligibility, but how many they ultimately enrolled? 125 or 124 in one limb. Out of this limb, of the control group, around 28% patients were crossover to ECMO. Ultimately, what happened? They were in a control group where they thought that they will use only ventilation or prone positioning, blah blah blah. That is standard of care therapy to them. But out of them also, 28% patients had to go to ECMO. So, do you agree with less is more? Another paper by Gattinoni, it's an editorial. What he said, emergency ECMO improves outcome by buying time in extremely hypoxic hypoxic patients. Look at this, what he said. Of these 35 patients, those 28% patients who were switched over from control group to the ECMO, these 35 patients, these SaO2 of maiden is 77 only. 9 had cardiac arrest. Ultimately, 15 survived. Without ECMO in a control group, 0 should have been the survival rate. None of them would have survived otherwise. Regardless of the statistical relevance, that is what I said. Life is not only 0.05 p or greater than that. ECMO improves outcome by reducing the invasiveness of mechanical ventilation. Another observation was this. During ECMO, tidal volume was reduced by 43% and respiratory rate by 23%, while PEEP remained essentially unchanged. So what he meant to say, Gattinoni is a very strong proponent of mechanical power nowadays. He is relating mechanical power to the lung damage. So what he says, that mechanical power by using ECMO was brought down to very less. So the lung injury was not there. So the recovery was better. What he commented, nevertheless, we find, not I find, they find, Gattinoni find, that the results are quite impressive, and 11% absolute mortality reduction in the patient receiving ECMO is remarkable. So we should not restrict ourselves by thinking that less is more, or India is a poor country, we don't have what resources, we should not waste our resources, we should treat the needy one, blah blah blah, so many socialist things. Sometimes we need to look at the capitalist idea as well. Another less is more in intensive care, another fan of less is more, like we are seeing less is more since morning here also. Again, there is a dichotomy in this topic or this statement or this article by Alan Coombs, who was the author of the earlier trial. What he said, it is important to establish as early as possible when these interventions fail. What intervention? Recruitment maneuver, prone positioning, muscle paralysis, all those when they are failing, patient is still having hypoxia, start ECMO. Please start ECMO. Don't wait for some time. Don't give less is more. Don't give it a thought also. Because delaying ECMO when it is indicated may lead to life-threatening hypoxia, progressive organ failure, and risk of cardiac arrest. You remember those 28% of the patient, 7 had cardiac arrest. Why? Maybe because they were kept hypoxic for a long time. They do not recommend waiting until patient's SaO2 is less than 80% for 6 hours before initiating ECMO. So classically we say that if patient is hypoxic for 6 hours, start ECMO. What they say, 80% should not be taken as a 6-hour benchmark. We should start early ECMO in these patients. So despite all these challenges, this is a ELSO live registry. I downloaded today afternoon only. This, as per this registry, till now 88,104 patients, adult patients, has been treated with ECMO, and the hospital mortality is 48% out of these patients. It could be a pulmonary, cardiac, and ECPR, all three together. If we talk about COVID only, this is the ELSO registry, downloaded today only. In the registry, 10,904 patients were assessed for ECMO. Out of this, 9,707 patients were confirmed for ECMO, where the ECMO was initiated at least 90 days ago, and in hospital mortality is 48%. So it is much better than the conventional. So less is more, but not always. Not when life and death is in question. Not when saving a precious life is the priority. Not when all other options are exhausted. Not when ECMO could only be the last chance for the survival. Just think it over. When my or your near and dear is in ICU having refractory hypoxemia, will you think less is more, or you will call a person who can put ECMO or refer to a center where ECMO is available? Think it deeply before deciding anything. So I would say, sometimes you need to go all out to save the life. Despite challenges, ECMO is still life-saving in the patients with severe refractory respiratory failure. Thank you very much. So now I hope that there are few believers in less is more. They probably have converted to more and more. Thank you.
Small request, sir. to present the ICC National Conference about the slides and place in it.
So our General Secretary Dr. Babu is also present here. I request him to please come to the lab. So on the behalf of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine, I invite you all to our 28th annual conference of Indian Society of Critical Care Medicine. The theme this year is New Normal, New Frontiers and New Directions. We are having workshop on 16th and 17th February and conference from 18th to 20th February. This is going to happen in the Mahatma Mandir Convention and Exhibition Center at Gandhinagar. It's a huge convention center where this all Pravasi Bharatiya, Vibrant Gujarat, those type of events takes place. So you can see there is a one side, this is the exhibition area, the halls, this is the convention center, and in between this is a Gandhi Darshan. So this pyramid type structure is all about the Gandhi's museum. That is why this whole area is called as a mandir. So there are 14 workshops, 4C, which is like a very popular workshop, comprehensive critical care course, airway management and bronchoscopy in critical care, ultrasound in critical care, mechanical ventilation. This time we have added the advanced mechanical ventilation also to the bunch of conference workshops. So 2 mechanical ventilation workshops will be there, basic as well as advanced. Neurocritical care is there, multi-organ and extracorporeal support therapy, cardiac critical care, critical communication, research methodology, train the teachers and examiners and instructors, so train the trainers, and safety, quality, accreditation and prevention of error, nursing, and another workshop will be CPR and the trauma response. This will be dedicated to the allied services like police, traffic police, civil defense from local Ahmedabad. So this time we thought that we are doing conference in Ahmedabad, something we should give back to the local population as well. This will be totally free. These are the conference highlights. Pulta Research Symposium, Meet the Expert, Ahead of Time, What Went Wrong, Sepsis Guidelines, What's New, Pro Con Debate. So instead of debate, we are planning to have debate. What happens in debate, sometimes things are too twisted. Pro person twists everything to pro, the con twists everything to the con, and the audience is like something they don't really know what is the right thing to do. So third person will have a balanced view. That's how we are planning to do it. Then live case discussion, pandemic learning, predictive learning by using artificial intelligence, legend and the history of of critical care, action and replay, pictography, DG corner, and presenters likely to be meeting with the industry and other people. There will be live demonstration, skill stations during the work conference, physiological implications, Quest, Connect, and the other sites. So multiple things are there. This is layout. I don't want to go into the detail. I request Dr. Arindam if you can show the video as well.
People has gone to multiply this. But Deepak is here. So this is Con Pro talk. So the Con came first, and now the Pro is talking. Okay, always I've never liked Pro Con or Con Pro talks. The main reason being I felt that it leaves the majority of the audience confused at the end of the talk, especially the trainees and the people who are just becoming consultants in For the seniors, yes, it's quite refreshing. They are able to understand the nuances of all. So, with that, let me just start. I do not know, I didn't even hear what Deepak spoke, so I don't know what we are going to debate. Okay, so quickly, I'm sure he would have said all this. So ECMO is not anything new. It started as early as 1972, okay, in adults. And the first paper was published in a trauma patient. And in neonates, it was done in 1976. And Robert Bartlett is called the father of ECMO. He had a big role in the involvement of the ECMO, which you see in this picture, the new ECMOs that you're seeing around. But the first RCT on ECMO, which came in 1979, showed increased mortality, and the main reason for it was because of the membranes, tubing, the rota that was used, all that put together was a lot of side effects, and because of that, it lost its popularity, even though in the 1790s, a lot of neonatal cases had ECMO therapy. But after that, in 2009, after a long gap and after having had a lot of um, improvements made on the ECMO system, the membrane, the circuits, and the pumps. The first study comes out, the CSIS study. Everyone is aware of the CSIS study. I'm not going to go through the details of it. So, in CSIS study, it is an RCT done in the UK, 180 patients in two arms, the ECMO arm and the conventional treatment arm, and they looked at what is the mortality at the end of 6 months and what is the cost of running an ECMO. Is it feasible to run ECMO? What you need to understand in this is all patients in the ECMO arm was moved to an ECMO center. It was not done in different hospitals. They were moved to the ECMO center, and the other patients who had in the conventional arm were treated in their respective hospitals. And this study showed that there is a mortality benefit, with the number needed to treat to 6. The 6 patients you treat with ECMO, you save a life, and that's what the study showed. And everyone was very thrilled about it. ECMO started coming back to work. But what you need to know about this study is there are certain flaws in the study which could have hampered the outcome. Okay, the control arm was not standardized. A lot of things that was done in the control arm we would not do now. 30% of them did not get the lung protective ventilation. 40% were not prone, which we won't even think of it now. And those patients who went into ECMO after intubation were placed on ECMO very quickly, within 48 hours. And other thing which really need to know is the treatment arm, the ECMO arm, patients got moved to the center, and what they did is they optimized the mechanical ventilation in these patients before placing them on ECMO, and you will notice that 19% of these patients did not require ECMO. So even though they got randomized to ECMO and got moved to the ECMO center, 90% didn't need ECMO. Just with good ventilation, they got better. Which is telling us that the conventional arm was not done well at all. It was practically mismanaged. And if you have one arm where you are killing patients, the other arm will definitely look very good, isn't it? So I would say that this was a study that compared care in a tertiary center versus care in individual centers, and not care of ECMO versus conventional mechanical ventilation. But however, this gave an impetus to ECMO therapy, and after that, we would see 4 cohort-based studies which have come out. I just like to highlight the 4 cohort-based studies. Okay. And in all 4 of these cohort-based studies, what I would like to highlight highlight is the mortality. The mortality of patients who were on ECMO was about 20%, 23%, 24%, 36%, which clearly showed that if you use ECMO, you could save lives. But there are two other things I would like to highlight in all four of these studies. Look at the age, the mean or median age of the patients who were placed on ECMO. 34, 36, 39, 42, all young patients. And see where ECMO has done. The first study is New Zealand and Australia, 15 ECMO centers in two countries. There are so many other hospitals, but they were moved to the 15 ECMO centers, and that's where it was done. In the UK, to 4 ECMO centers. In the Italian study, to 14 ECMO centers. Only in the French study, there were 30 centers which were not classified as ECMO centers. So again telling us that if you are doing ECMO, it has to be in a place where you are doing ECMO regularly. It has to be an ECMO center, and if you want to get the benefit, and you have maybe choose younger patients. So this studies, if you look at it, all came out in the period after the CSER study, 2009, 2011, 2013. Okay. In 2018, we get another randomized controlled trial to look at whether ECMO really works or not. This is an RCT from France, 64 centers, 249 patients. Here the control arm is standardized. So there was a protocol for how the mechanical ventilation needs to be done. The features of this study were young patients, severe ARDS, early initiation at after intubation within about 34 hours. Primary endpoint was 60-day mortality. And I'm showing you the Kaplan graph on the side. There was no difference or statistical difference in mortality between the ECMO arm or control arm. Okay. The people who love ECMO will say, you know what, you look at the change to absolute risk reduction. Absolute reduction is 11%. 11% is not bad, even though statistical significance has not been reached. So maybe there is a role for ECMO. Yeah, but you're playing around with statistics. You know the same study they had, another study which did the Bayesian analysis. So people who are involved, who love ECMO will try not ECMO. You look at any study. Okay. Those who are biased with one treatment will try to tweak the statistics to their favor to make it look like, you know, the statistics is now favor. Okay. But the study showed that secondary outcomes like failure in treatment, lower rate of treatment failure, lower rate of need for renal replacement therapy, all those were there. But there were more adverse events. But there was something very interesting about the study, which made all of us sit back and look at it saying, there is some message in this study. Maybe ECMO will work if you choose your patients well. And the main thing was the conventional arm. There were 28% of patients who crossed over to the ECMO arm because they were very, very sick, and the treating physicians felt that they would benefit from it. And this 28% was seen to have very high mortality. And there's a strong possibility that this 28% could have skewed the data away from ECMO. Okay. That is a thing we should keep at the back of the mind, and maybe I'd say maybe we need more studies comparing ECMO versus conventional therapy before we can say please everyone on ECMO. So what has happened from the CSER study for the next 10 years? A rapid explosion of worldwide ECMO therapy, even in small hospitals. Okay. Everyone wants to do ECMO. If you look at the ELSO guidelines, from 2010 to 2019, 2019 is where the H1N1 endemic comes up. Before the endemic itself, you look at the ECMO registry, there is an increase in the number of ECMO centers all around the world, from 183 centers to 4,637 centers. Number of ECMO runs per year, from 3,414 to 12,850. So something has happened. I don't think it's a CSA study or the last study that I mentioned. Something else is pushing ECMO. We don't know what it is. Even in Germany, they look at their registry, PV ECMOs tripled from 2007 to 2014. Okay, even though the mortality in ECMO patients were as high as 70%. So what do you think is happening? Okay, the corporate world. There is strong evidence that there is a big push by the corporate world, and look at the financial interest should not be limited. Reimbursement from ECMO programs can be substantial for institutions. So the government will say, you do ECMO, we'll reimburse you. So all institutions, everyone wants to do ECMO because they're going to get more money. Okay? Incentives. Okay? So the industry is playing a big role here. Keep that at the back of mind before you do anything. Not ECMO, anything in medical practice now, beware of the industry. Then comes the COVID-19 pandemic, big explosion. We want to do everything to save our patients. Okay, starting from plasmapheresis, you name it. We have done everything. And look at what has happened to ECMO. The number of studies or number of centers that have tried ECMO. And what you notice is, from the previous studies, we very clearly know that it's only younger patients that will benefit, and we know that it's only patients who have been sick and we have optimized and the mechanical ventilation study and still failing would benefit. Now, if you look at the age of patients in all the studies, the third, look at that. Mean or median, whatever it is, 47, 64, 59, 50, 62, 52, 52, 40, 59, 149, 49, 48. I'm talking about mean or median age. So irrespective of who the patient is or what the patient underlying condition was, ECMO got good. And look at the mortality, 83%. There's one 8% here. Okay, I haven't gone through each of this. Most of it are retrospective studies, AACDs, not worth even spending your time reading on it. Okay, this is how ECMO has exploded. I would like to end with last 2 or 3 slides. Our experience, Indian experience in my hospital. So this is the experience pre-COVID from 2010 to 2018. On an average, before the H1N1 endemic, we used to get about 1 ARDS patient per week. So we get 4, maximum 5 ARDS patient a month. And we very seldom needed to put ECMO. You will see, when we look back and looked at it, we had 39 patients that we needed to place ECMO. We found that if you do good mechanical ventilation and prone positioning, we need not use ECMO in majority of patients. We wanted to audit, in fact, our practice and see what was happening. Because we felt that ECMO was not benefiting our patients. So if you look at it, our in-hospital mortality for ECMO patients is 61%, extremely high. Much higher than ARDS patients that we are ventilating. ARDS patients we are ventilating, the mortality is anywhere between 35 to 40%. Yes, you can say that these are the sickest of sick. Only when the conventional therapy fails, we put them on ECMO, and you put a sick patient on ECMO, yes, mortality will be higher. But what we realized is, it is not ECMO that kill, or it's not the complications of ECMO that kill. Lungs used to recover. We would be weaning the ECMO, but what killed them is sepsis. 50% of our patients have sepsis. Okay. So that is a big problem for us. And if you compare our study with the other studies which I mentioned before, okay, the age, most of our patients who got ECMO were about 44 years old. The PF ratio is 66%. 6.9. So they were very, very sick from the lung point of view. 50% of our patients got prone. The other 50 who did not get prone had reason for not proning, and most of them had nitric oxide. So they had actual therapy. They were on ECMO for about 3.7 days. Okay. Compared with other studies, the mortality was the highest for us, 61%. Okay. And I was surprised to see that Australia and New Zealand had higher cases of sepsis than we did. They had 62%, whereas we had about 50%. Okay. So that made us think when the COVID-19 pandemic started, it's worth putting patients on ECMO. Are we only going to prolong the suffering and then finally they died and give them a huge bill? We made very conscious decisions and made certain big changes. I have no time to talk about it. This is data which is not published. It will be published. We are working on it. In this pandemic, we have done ECMO for 27 patients. We have lost 6 of them. That's 22%. There are 6 still on VD ECMO as I speak today. We have decandidated 21%. 77% of the patients we have decandidated. And out of the 15 have gone home. 55% have gone home. Okay? Sorry, moved out of the ECMO unit. Out of which 11 have gone home, and 4 are still in the hospital having rehab, and 6 are decandidated but on mechanical ventilation being weaned. So we have made a lot of changes, and we are seeing the fruits of changes, but those changes came at huge resource utilization. Very large utilizer of resources, which I don't think can be implemented at a large scale in a pandemic. We can implement it in isolated pockets in centers. Okay. So, how will I conclude? ECMO has a definite but limited role in the management of severe acute respiratory failure as of now. I am sure it will have a definite role in years to come, with fine-tuning of the technique, fine-tuning of the anticoagulation we are going to use, fine-tuning of the membranes and the pumps. ECMO is here to stay. But as of now, it is not to be used in everyone. You have to choose your patient very carefully. It has a limited role, and you have to use it very carefully. And I think the patients who would benefit from ECMO are the younger ones. I put 60 to 65 because I'm at 60. Didn't want to not have the option of ECMO. No, I'm joking. It's less than 65. Severe ARDS, PF ratio less than 80. Should have had mechanical ventilation optimized and maximized. When you see that, you make sure that it's low tidal volume, your platelet pressures are not going above 30, your driving pressures are not going above 50. If you can check transpulmonary pressure, please do that. Don't forget acute adjunct therapy. When I say adjunct therapy, it's prone ventilation. There are only 2 things in ARDS which has shown very strong evidence for reducing mortality: low tidal volume and proning. Please don't put your patient on an ECMO machine without using it. Okay? Initiate at appropriate time. Is it 5 days, 7 days? We are not sure. But 2 days, 3 days has not shown benefit. Don't use it in patients with contraindication. Resource utilization is enormous. Who is going to foot the bill? You have to think about it and then do it. And the other thing is, to set up an ECMO center is not easy. It's trained staff. You cannot expect someone to come and candidate your patient, leave you in the hospital, and then fly out and then expect that ECMO patient to get better. You need the team to be there on the bedside 24/7 taking care. Ethical issues. In the pandemic time, we forgot about it. Ethical issues. You put a patient in ECMO. Is it an ECMO to cure? ECMO to bridge? ECMO to bridge to transplant? ECMO to what? COVID patients with us are taking 6 months. We had a patient who we got decanted recently, 180 49 days, they don't need transplant. We sit on the lungs get better. We only transplanted one patient. The patient died. Okay. So, lot of ethical issues. We have to address all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Babu sir. Thank you, Deepak sir. I want both Deepak sir and Babu sir. Come sir, have a seat. So most of during COVID pandemic, we all running more. Maybe out of fancy or some pressure from the management or people demand it. People are asking us why you have a ECMO, why can't you put the patient in ECMO? Sometimes they say that it's bridging. They're even asking for a transplant also. So in these situations, so what is the take home for us? Like if third pandemic comes, like third wave comes, so what should we go with?
It will not do. That's optimistic.
So right patient selection, right time, and the right resources is the key. Right resources, that is what I say. Right resources is the key. If you are not putting your patient in the right time or right patient is not being put, it's just wastage, as Dr. Babu rightly said. But look at his data. If they are able to save how many, 55% or something like that, so it's amazing.
As of now, 55% have gone home.
Yeah, it's amazing. Otherwise, they would have died. So that is what I am saying. You cannot say less is more in ECMO.
But billions more, sir. Billions, so more.
So,
That is what I initially said. Don't mix up capitalism and socialism with health. Imagine 30, 40 years back when the negative pressure ventilation was changed to positive pressure. There was hardly ventilators around the world. Same thing is with ECMO. That time when the penicillin was brought in India, you remember the cost that you must have heard in the history, the cost was enormous at that point of time. Nobody could have afforded. But still we are not discussing the socialism here. We are discussing the modality. Those who can afford, those who cannot afford. If we come back to socialism, how many people can afford the Apollo Chennai? Leave apart the ECMO.
Vedanta is cheaper than Apollo Chennai?
Pardon?
Vedanta is cheaper than Apollo Chennai?
Maybe a little bit.
I have a question.
yes.
No,
Yes,
We are not hearing you.
Sir, there are a lot of in the first wave I did around close to around 30-35 it was in Kolkata, and then when it came back, shifted to Mumbai. And overall we did all sort of programs, sir, we know that, and in fact I coordinated one of the biggest web-based discussion and all. Everyone was very disappointed by the outcome in the second wave, something like that. But one very interesting part came, I'm asking both of you as you were there. Had there been any propensity matched analysis of the ECMO survivors with the patient who also survived without ECMO, with a similar thing? Because there was a concept that maybe this patient would have survived with it even without an ECMO itself. And that part. And also the other disappointment part was that bridge to nowhere, which you said, that we were stuck. And in fact, a lot of countries have actually officially stated that ECMO should not be considered in COVID. Lung transplant is a big no. In India, no one is doing a lung transplant. We started lung transplant in Mumbai now. COVID patients, no. We straight away, we are refusing.
I heard that there is Hyderabad is aggressive with lung transplant.
No, they have done that, but I had a word with Vigil. They are saying no. Sandeep Agawal's team is saying no to the COVID patients, because a long waiting list with an infectivity and all others, the outcomes are very small. They are actively refusing. They are saying that this resource is being wasted. It could have done wonder to the non-COVID patients. So my question is whether this matching, whether they could have done also well without an ECMO itself.
So, I took up medicine mainly because I'm very bad at maths and statistics. So I hate statistics. To tell you the truth. Propensity matching and different different sort of matchings. If you look at these papers, they are trying to work around RCTs. Okay, when you don't have two groups that you can compare, they are trying to pick patients from the group that's our propensity. They are looking at few things: age, same age, PF ratio same, duration of ventilation same, and then if they are same, then you try to compare two. So yes, when you don't have an RCT, that might be a good way to do it. But if you, the four papers that I spoke about, which is done after the Caesar, the last one, the French paper, if you read it, a very nice discussion. They have done a propensity matching. In their propensity matching, there was no difference between ECMO patient versus the conventional treatment arm. Okay. And they have mentioned the propensity matching done by one other study, I think the Italian study, UK study, I'm not sure, showed a difference. And the author is clearly mentioning, if I had used a different statistical method for my propensity matching, I could have also shown the same difference in mortality. Okay. So I don't know is the answer. When you don't have an RCT, all these are just aids to try and see is it a good or a bad. The answer is we don't know. Right? We need to do it when we don't have an RCT, because doing an RCT in a pandemic is impossible. After the pandemic, maybe we can.
Good evening, Babu sir and Govil sir. Excellent discussion is going on. So, once a patient is fulfill the criteria of putting on ECMO, and your center is not center for ECMO, but you have ECMO machine, and the patient is not fit for shifting to ECMO center. So, can you take the risk and put the, because nowadays ECMO people are coming, like ECMO technicians or team is coming and yeah. How far it works?
I will tell you from my experience. People can add on to it. So before the COVID, people who have worked with me will know we used to do ECMO in our medical and surgical ICU. So it means ECMO, we put there and it will be the same nurse who is taking care, and everything was, and you saw the mortality. Mortality was 61, almost 70% mortality. This time in COVID, we took a decision that this is not working. We created a separate ECMO unit. And it was like the transplant unit. You can't get into the unit without wearing your scrubs and gowning. We have 2 nurses per patient. We have 12-bedded ICU, and at one point we had 13 patients. One patient was outside. So remember, 2 nurses per patient. For every 6 patients, a charge nurse, okay, 1 junior perfusionist for a patient, a senior perfusionist to oversee, physiotherapist for 2 physiotherapists for 6 patients on either side. Okay, registrars round the clock, every shift, with a team which consists of cardiothoracic surgeon, intensivist, you know that nutritionist, pharmacologist, all that. Okay. If you have resources to do that, and you don't break the chain, putting in an ECMO catheter and starting a pump can be done by a technician. If you break the chain, which I have said, you will not get the outcome you are expecting. Okay. That's what I think. This is the difference we have seen. And my view, even Deepak will know, when we had a talk on ECMO for COVID, my first response was, is this ethical to even do ECMO in a pandemic when you don't have enough oxygen? People are dying without oxygen, and talking about ECMO. Is it even ethical? So he told me it's 2 different things. One is a scientific talk, it's an ethical talk. Okay, ethical talk, you can, let's talk science. Okay, but when we set this up and started running, and when we see the response that we are, the outcome we are seeing, the youngest patient we had is 24 years old. Yet, unfortunately, he did not survive. He went for lung transplant and died. Post lung transplantation. All the other patients who have got better and gone home have gone back to work. All are in the 30s. All are earning members of the family. If they can afford this, why not offer it? Why not offer it? Okay. You see the videos that they send back after each, they come for review, then send back at what they are doing. It's heartwarming. Okay. It's, don't think about the finance. I know, can you know you can't, but when I've been doing ICU for long enough, and each time I get depressed, I say I'm going to stop, I'm going to retire. But when you say one life, it makes you run for another year without a loss. That's how critical care is.
Sir, you are senior pulmonologist. That's why I'm asking. The pathogens of the COVID is microvascular thrombus. Microvascular thrombus leads to infarct of the lungs. When patient is on ECMO, that means extensive infarct of the lungs. How it is recovering without fibrosis?
See, okay, how is it recovering without fibrosis?
What fibrosis?
So, when do you call in fibrosis? See, all this is theory. Okay, but yes, spoken as theory, agree. But we are seeing lungs which are improving on ECMO after 6 months. I mean, I haven't brought the videos or the CT scan clipping of it. Lungs which look solid like a liver. There is an echo which I don't want, I can show you the echo which is. Echo, when it is done, the lung look like a liver, completely like a liver. And the same patient at the end of 4 or 5 months when he comes out of the ECMO, I won't say lung is perfectly normal, has CT scan shows changes with septal thickening, traction bronchitis and all that, but he does not need oxygen for survival. We will know how the lung is after 1.5 years. Will he have it? It is recovering. It is not ILD like fibrous destroyed lung. Out of the 27 patients, only one patient is lad only his was completely damaged. There is one more patient on ECMO who is heading towards that. It is recovering. It's not fibrosis like ILD fibrosis. I don't know.
Any dead lung will lead to fibrosis. Why not happening in this COVID with the hospital?
Do not know. So there is something beyond all of us.
Your data, PF ratio is 66. So the TP is only around 13.6.
Correct. The pneumothorax. How many? I have not seen pneumothorax this much in my life.
Most COVID
Without the bronchitis,
Correct.
without PF.
On NIV, I see. So we have been very, very careful about P. In COVID, we have been extremely careful with P. Maybe that is really. The other studies would have seen P will be always 18 to 20. Here we are seldom going, 15 itself is too high. Sorry?
Pneumothorax is common post-COVID.
No, even not post-COVID.
Post-COVID we are seeing because of
Even a patient on the day 5 days of hypoxemia, patient suddenly is not doing well and next day showing even
we are seeing so many cases in DJ. We didn't see that much. How it happened? How forward?
He's telling that he's seeing the pneumothorax after the recovery from the COVID.
Sir,
During
I am
active
working in JJ. It is 500 bed COVID hospital. I have not seen that much pneumothorax in oxygen or HFNO patients.
Impossible. NIV we are seeing.
100 bed HFNO patients.
Thank you, sir. It's a very lively, nice discussion. And at the end of the even at late hour also, people have enjoyed, I think, this discussion. Thanks for your time, sir.
Yeah, many people are having experience in ECMO, sir. That's why I am very much interested. Many of these people are having ECMO experience, sir. And we have sent cases to you.
So can I make a comment?
Please.
So when 12, 13 years back, when CRRT we were just beginning to do in the ICUs. So 12, 13 years back when we started doing CRRT in the ICUs, I was beginning my critical care career at that time. My boss used to say this statement every time we would put a patient on CRRT. He would say, I put one patient on CRRT and 2 of my patients died. Because that sister doesn't look at the other patient at all. So I think this applies to ECMO if we have resource limitations in our ICUs.
But try to understand this thing. We are creating a chicken and egg situation. So someone somewhere has to start. Otherwise, how this ECMO center will come into the existence? If UND will not start, how these ECMO centers will come into the existence? Like he's got fortunate enough, got trained in UK. I didn't get opportunity to go to UK. I trained in a very small place. When I got my post-graduation, we were not having even ventilators in that town. Not even pulse oximeters in that town. And today I can say where I have reached because I did on the patients. I know I have paid a huge price, but patient is also having no choice. In a small town, if you are having a single ventilator, patient has got no choice. Whether he has to die there with ventilator or without ventilator, he is not going to reach 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers apart. So it's a crucial thing, but what he said makes a standard. If you can devote your team, that much team can be devoted, that much manpower can be deputed, certainly you can start doing ECMO. As you gain the experience, they have also gained the experience. They have reached from earlier 60% mortality to less mortality. So everybody can reach there. But of course, there will be patients who can afford any damn thing, whether they will ask you point frankly, how much is your experience? The moment you say we have recently started, they'll say, I would like to go to Apollo Chennai, I don't want to get treated here. I'll bring the air and move on. But there are many patients who will not be able to move even a kilometer out of the hospital. So don't hesitate. My feeling is one has to be determination, one has to be honest with themselves that look, if in this situation I can put my family to ECMO, then you can put the patient also on ECMO. And you have to be dedicated team. That I agree. That you have to have a dedicated team. It cannot be done like any other patient in the ICU that everybody is looking after them.
Thank you so much to both the speakers, Abraham sir and Deepak Govil sir. I think the last part was the best. I think all of us are in agreement with that. Special thanks to Nilofer and Bharani for bearing with all our antics since this morning. Thank you so much. We conclude the sessions for today and we meet tomorrow.